Hey horror fans, happy October once again. I am bored now. Today I'm going to be talking about The Son of Frankenstein from 1939. So, me and Rachel did the previous two Universal Frankenstein movies on the channel. This is the third movie, and this one is directed by Roland V. Lee. Sort of sounds like a posh, like military type general, something like that. So the setup for this one is that it features the son of the late Frankenstein. So it's Baron, played by Basil Rathbone, and he and his young family relocate to the town of the original movies. And there's all this hysteria, all this uproar about, that the son of the famous inventor Frankenstein is coming. This is going to mean nothing but terror and dread on this old town. And there's paranoia that he's going to turn out to be just like his father. He's really waxing lyrical and making all these excuses for Victor Frankenstein, because he's saying things like, "Oh, he was a great miracle worker," and claiming that what went down wasn't his father's fault. It's like, okay, because the mind of a psychopath went into the monster. That wasn't my father's doing. So he seems very much in denial about what his father actually was. Definitely play it as he's not as crazy as his father. And I think that's because they introduce a new villain into the movie. But him and his wife and their young son Peter, who's an annoying little shit, that they settle down or tried to settle down. They've inherited the father's property. And the town are divided. The town are like, there's some people who are like, well, we're going to welcome them. They deserve to be welcomed, to have this fresh start. Like, it's not his fault what his father did. Others who are just from the word go, they're like, no, we don't trust this. The name Frankenstein is a bad thing. Reintroduced the Ygor character, who somehow is still alive. And this movie does a lot of hand waving. In fact, it doesn't really explain certain things. It's like, just because we need a movie, we need a sequel. So he's played by Bela Lugosi, and he's still alive because he's got a really strong neck. His neck just wouldn't break, so they tried to execute him, and his neck wouldn't break, so he didn't die. That literally seems to be the explanation in this movie, and they're almost regretting that later when they find out, oh shit, we didn't kill him. Next time we'll have to break the neck a bit harder. The villain of the movie, because he's kind of sneaking about in the Gothic like underpaths in the early going, sneaking about, spying on the house, the bedroom of the son, all the rest of it. And it turns out he's been keeping the monster of Frankenstein, played by Boris Karloff, in a tomb beneath the house, and he's got the whole family like buried there. Hints that the monster is still technically alive. Do you know how people complain about modern uses of cheap nostalgia in nostalgia sequels? Well, it's got nothing on this. When he's prodding at the monster and the monster suddenly gives out like a reaction, like a spasm, Baron's reaction, just like his late father, is, "Oh my god, he's alive! He's alive!" That is the earliest nostalgia pop of all time. Or he needs Baron Frankenstein's help to bring him back to life and to nurse him. And what starts off as a little bit of an innocent project gets out of hand. And Eagle basically does become the villain of the movie. The wife, Elsa, I think her name was, the kid, they're very much innocent. Like, the wife has no idea what's going on. You have a concerned local inspector who, when they first move, like, he's welcoming him, but he's very much like, we need to get you a new identity, Baron. I need to protect you. Because he tells this story about how his arm was ripped off by the monster, supposedly, and he's using that as a warning. You expect really the movies to get gradually worse in this series, because they did hit some pretty high points when it comes to the original Frankenstein and also Bride of Frankenstein, which me and Rachel both to to different degrees. I know Rachel was a bit more down on the sequel, but I actually think it's a pretty strong sequel and probably one of the best horror sequels. It's definitely not perfect, but I think it does hold up pretty well. It's definitely the weakest film so far, but I've got to say, there's also really a lot to enjoy in it. I think the problem is that it's over long. It's weird because it's like 100 minutes long, and one of our small complaints with Bride of Frankenstein was it could have been a bit longer because that movie was like 70 minutes longer. 70 minutes long. And they did this sort of grand build up to the Bride of Frankenstein being brought. She's alive! She's alive! And then you only really get 10 minutes with her at the end. And it's a very iconic 10 minutes because everybody remembers it. But we both agreed that film could have maybe have been a little bit longer. It was a little bit over long where the back half was dragging quite a lot and they were looking for a lot of filler because like you've got scenes where like the inspector is like brought over for tea and he finds out about Baron who's like working away in his little laboratory and he's just saying random shit like, well, the Soviets built that years ago, the Romans, but like he's talking about how it like because it was built all those years ago, it doesn't hold up to modern things, and you get like fumes coming in, and it's like, just shut up, get on with the movie. This is a pointless sort of conversation. But overall, I actually quite enjoy the movie. Like, it's got some fun little antics. There's some fun little bits of dialogue. Like this movie, I think it plays a lot more into like the posh sort of proper kind of version of like Frankenstein family come to this small Gothic type town, and all the locals are a bit suspicious, like we don't want their kind here. But you know, they see it as all kind of romantic, and there's some fun to be had with that. Like at one point, the wife innocently asks, "Are the bedrooms cheery?" And then you've got like some grand speeches by Basil Rathbone as Baron Frankenstein, where he's giving a speech to the town. Literally, it's like, where is this your place to like just they give you a platform to address the town, like almost like it's a public like political thing where someone's trying to win you over, but it's like we come as friends, and he's got all these fancy sort of speeches because when they're on the train on the way over, they're talking about like how picturesque and romantic Europe is, and so some of that does add some fun because I think the characters are good in this for the most part. I think the characters do add some flavour and variety, and once again, I think it just shows you how sort of bland and forgettable a lot of horror characters are in in modern films, and the difference here where you do have a little bit more of a fun sort of feel to them, and there's a little bit more going on when it comes to personality. They've obviously cast this quite well. Just get quite silly, but in quite a fun way, where they really exaggerate certain things because you have like, as I said, he's giving this big speech out in the town when they first arrive, and there's a lot of rain in this movie, like it pisses it down like nothing else, and you get this visual of like the umbrellas, so everyone's got an umbrella and it's like this massive crowd when he's giving this speech, and it's just so funny when he's trying to appeal to them because you see all these umbrellas turn the other way and start walking off. It's so funny. But once again, the look of this movie is really good because of the basic old school sets and about how everything just looks so sort of like gothic and traditional, and just the house, like it's a big wide open space. You've got like these big wooden type staircase. You've got like shadows things look. And there's just something about the architecture and the way it's built, because at one point, what we think is the monster, but it's actually Ygor, is like peering through, like, because they've got almost like this. I don't know if it's meant to be a desk or some sort of just like a department, which is like you can peer into like the bedroom through it. So he's peering through the bedroom at one point. At one point, he appears in the mirror. Well, not the mirror, sorry, the window in like Gothic rain, and that's all quite good fun. But once again, the look of it, and I think the director does a pretty decent job, even though he's not James Whale. When you get in the build up to like him bringing Frankenstein or the monster, sorry, back to life. And once again, you get the electric shocks. You get like a slow camera movement coming along the thing, and again, the laboratory looks very sort of vintage and cool. The director does okay considering he's following on from what he was following on from with James Whale, probably one of the best horror directors. But I think the problem is that it does get padded out a bit, and I'll say even though I like Bela Lugosi, I did find Igor a bit annoying after a while. There's this random scene where the idea is that he's the real villain who's like using the monster for his own means, rather than I think Baron is just a bit naive. Like he's not in control in the same way as like his father was in the previous movies. But like, so there's this wacky cheesy scene where Eagle is like playing some sort of flute. And the idea is that it's controlling the monster, because like the monster gets out at some point and sort of goes on a warpath, and they're like, okay, what's going on here? Where's the monster? And there is a lot of like silly shit in this movie that you just sort of have to hand wave, because for some reason, when they find out Eagle's still alive, because he's doing experiments with Baron, they just kind of allow it. Like they're not happy about it, but they say, okay, don't you step out of line again, buddy. We're going to be keeping an eye on you. Baron holds a lot of power, and if he says so, okay, I'll make sure there's no shady business. But they're taking a lot on faith. It's sort of funny that they tried to execute this man, and then they don't trust him, but just because the Baron says so and we're doing these experiments, like, okay, we've got to allow this. The kid was, as I said, an annoying little shit. Like, Peter was really annoying. He very much comes from the Shirley Temple school of acting, and that sort of, like, pretty spreckled face little snot-nosed little shit. And he just becomes a damsel by the end of the movie, because he's the one who the monster goes after and captures in like the sort of big finale. Definitely true. Then we've improved, haven't we? The standard of kids in kids movies, and they're nowhere near as annoying as this little shit in later kids movies, right? Those two movies had better horror scenes. So if you're looking for better horror scenes and a bit more of a horror type movie, it doesn't really like, it's not as good, because a lot of the big scenes you see from a distance, and obviously the original movies were never violent or anything, and you never really saw any blood because it's from that era. But like, I think the horror scenes were much more effective. Like I said, there's some decent direction in here, but I don't think the horror scenes are particularly good. And as I said, they do pad it out a bit. 100 minutes did seem to be pushing it for this movie. However, it's worth it just for the final scene. And it's funny that they got Basil Rathbone to be a part of this, considering one of his other big roles is like Robin Hood. But so literally the final scene, which looks really cool because it's like above some lava, and like the monster has like captured the kid and he's got him hostage, and things have just gotten out of control. And I think they've already killed Eagle at this point. And literally, Baron Frankenstein, played by Basil Rathbone, swings in on a rope to save his kid, and he basically knocks the monster into the lava. And not only does it look really cool because it's this big set and he's dropping into the lava, which always looks cool, but it's so fucking bombastic that he swings in on a rope and kicks him in. It feels like it's from a different movie, but I kind of love it anyway. So it's worth it just for the end. That's all I'll say. There is quite a bit of padding, but it is worth it to get to that grand finale, and the town sees them off in a more happy place. There you have it. That's the movie, but there's semantics, folks. The setting is really charming and cheery, I guess, to quote the wife. It's very sort of gothic and old school. The actors are decent, although, as I said, Ygor did get on my nerves, even though I like Bela Lugosi. So it's a pretty fun sequel. It's definitely not as good as the previous two, but it's pretty solid fun, and it's worth checking out. And by the way, it's on Internet Archive, so it's free. It's free to watch. I'll give Son of Frankenstein a solid 6 out of 10. Not bad as sequels go. But I hope you guys are having a good Halloween season, a good spooky season. Let me know what you think of Son of Frankenstein if you've seen it in the comments below. Like and subscribe. I'm here all month, guys, so I'll see you again soon for more horror movies. Take care. Goodbye.
As a man, I could destroy him. But as a scientist, I should do everything in my power to bring him back to conscious life. Benson, turn on the generator.
Produced on a vast scale, Son of Frankenstein presents the most fearsome cast in the history of the screen. The Rathbone. In his heart, warm human emotions. In his mind, the monster mania. Karloff, rising from the past to spread new terror. Lugosi, sinister, mysterious, evil. Lionel Atwill, grim hatred in his blood.
By heaven, I think you're a worse fiend than your father. Where is this monster? Where is he? I'll stay by your side until you confess. And if you don't, I'll feed you to the villagers.